I'm your host, Eric Eisenberg. Welcome to Hero Blend number 15. Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes out this week and promises to be one of the most divisive movies of the summer. What do we think of it? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back, everyone. I am pleased to have what I think is probably my most frequent guest back once again. It's movie content director Sean O'Connell from Cinema Blend. How's it going, man?
It's good. We should tell everyone that I invited myself to this one so that I could defend The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with a passion.
Fair. For those of you who have been keeping up with the site, my review is currently on there, and while I didn't hate Amazing Spider-Man 2, I wasn't its biggest fan. I kind of saw a few problems with it that I don't think Sean necessarily saw. Is that true?
No, actually, I definitely acknowledge the issues that you brought up, and I thought the way that you presented your review, I mean, you're right. I think what I'm seeing with the people who have problems with it or aren't embracing it quite as much is that the things that are issues really contradict the things that work really well, and I think for people who really like Spider-Man a lot, the things that work really well sort of outweigh the negatives. But we'll get into that.
Well, I mean, I think we should start by talking about some of the common ground that we might have, the fact that, like, some of the stuff that we agree on, and just kind of starting that conversation, I think that we need to talk about Andrew Garfield, who I really liked in the first movie, and this movie kind of proves that he was a really good choice to play Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
And I agree, too, and you brought this up. He's not your traditional Peter Parker, and I think that he made some bold decisions in the first movie that continued to build here. He was a little nerdier in the first movie, but he's not that painfully awkward, socially unacceptable kid.
It's true, and that is a key quality of Peter Parker. That's something that we know that character for.
But if you're going to update him to a new generation, I think you can make him a little bit more, like swagger is the wrong word, but he has a little bit more of a cynical edge to him that Peter, didn't always have, but tends to work still pretty well for this character, because when he gets into the Spider-Man mode, he needs that sarcasm, he needs that inflated sense of confidence that comes with going into all of these battles, but he's still this kind of character, and I think Garfield handles these moments really well, that when he's getting punched by life and it's just knocking stuff out of him, he's able to convey better than most other superhero actors this angst and this pain of just, what am I putting myself through, just to be Spider-Man? I'm giving up everything, I'm losing everything.
Well, I think also in addition to the just emotional half of it, I think he also kind of gets the physicality of the character in a certain way that kind of Tobey Maguire didn't. Andrew Garfield, and this is something that was kind of made a point of when he first joined the cast when he first joined the franchise, is that he's more of a kind of lanky guy. He's kind of string beanish, and that's more what the character is in the comics. And having just recently also watched Sam Raimi's movies with Tobey Maguire, he's kind of a more built Spider-Man, which isn't necessarily as in line, but obviously excusable. And I love the Raimi movies, so that's in there. But Andrew Garfield, there's a certain kind of agility to his performance. Like, he's very much the character that I saw on the page when I was reading Spider-Man comics, well, yesterday. So.
No, absolutely. But and part of that might be also they rely a little bit heavier on CGI in this one too. So you'll see sequences of Spider-Man in battle that clearly aren't practical effects, but I think it almost has to be, because Spider-Man as a character, because of his powers, is able to move much faster and bend in these agile ways that a normal person couldn't. So, when you're converting it to the silver screen, you might as well take advantage of the tricks that technology gives you now. And like you said, put him in these really agile sequences. Because, I mean, going back to the Raimi films, I still think the benchmark Spider-Man action sequence until these web films, and even until the most recent web film, was the subway fight. I mean, that was a great Spider-Man sequence, fight sequence. Dr. Octopus was a great villain.
Spider-Man 2, yeah.
They staged all that, from starting on the big building to landing on the train. That was a memorable sequence. But I think that the new movie, and this is why I like it as much as I do, gives you a number of these really memorable big box, big thinking action sequences that take advantage of the character that Spider-Man is.
Well, I actually will agree with you there. My favorite scenes in Amazing Spider-Man 2 were the scenes where he was doing battle, when he was swinging. Especially, I think that Rhino sequence at the beginning, that is exactly what I want out of a Spider-Man movie. Frankly, that opening sequence could be a Spider-Man short film, and I'd enjoy the hell out of it. And whenever the movie does kind of reach those fun levels, whenever it is like kind of bright and shiny, like
right.
Spider-Man comics, that's what I really wanted to see. And I mean, they have that throughout the film. I think the Times Square sequence with Electro is kind of another one where, I mean, it's a bit more dramatic than the Rhino fight, but it does kind of have that same sense of fun, and I love those moments about the film. But the problem is that that's not always the tone. Would you disagree that there is a kind of tonal inconsistency in this movie?
Well, here's the thing, and I have to acknowledge this because I just fear that this is the way that the industry is going. These filmmakers, when they're being given these assignments, they have to now include the foreshadowing and the world building that comes with it. And I think when Amazing Spider-Man loses its momentum, it's in those moments where, Mark Webb, probably studio mandated, has to start including scenes of things that we now know are going to pay off later.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when we used to get to a sequel for any franchise that we probably loved, nobody knew if there was going to be another one after it. And now, with most of these major franchises, we plan 3 and 4 chapters ahead. So I think
it's certainly part of. I mean, Marvel Studios' success has obviously dictated that in a major way.
But it's not only that. I think it's Star Wars, and I think it's going to be all of these. I think it's going to be the DC universe when we finally get Man of Steel 2. I think that you're going to feel these pieces now in all of these big franchises. They're definitely taking cues from Marvel, but I feel that these directors, when they get these scripts, they can't just anymore focus on the story at hand, and that's unfortunate. I think that's an unfortunate turn of the way the industry's going right now.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about kind of the bigger universe, and I mean, a big part of that is villains for Spider-Man, and I think that's something that I'm kind of split on in Amazing Spider-Man 2. First, let's talk about Electro, because I was looking forward to Electro. I mean, he's a cool character. Obviously, there's a lot of visual effects elements to it that are very interesting, but I can't really say that I was too overwhelmed with this version of the character. I mean, he was very one-dimensional. He wanted to be needed by society. He and he's kind of a little bit nuts, which I guess is all Spider-Man villains to a certain extent. But later in the film, he just eventually kind of just becomes the muscle. And I think it kind of detracts from what this movie is supposed to be, which is kind of the Spider-Man versus Electro movie. That's what Mark Webb has always said, even when talking about how the film wouldn't have too many villains, that would always be a center focus. And I think that it takes away, not having Electro be a stronger character takes away from the movie to a very important degree.
That is really interesting that you reminded me that was Webb's party line, that Electro is our villain, and it's Spider-Man versus Electro. Because now that we've seen the finished film, I don't think that's the case. I mean,
not at all. It's really not.
It's a Green Goblin movie. I mean, it really is. It's a Green Goblin movie.
Yeah.
Here's how I felt about Electro. I never thought that they rushed it. I thought he had as much backstory as almost Spider-Man villain that we've seen, not just on screen. But obviously in the comics they get a lot more time to sort of flush these guys out. But almost everybody has always been driven by one factor, whether it's Sandman needs money for his daughter's operation, or even with Dr. Octopus, he needed to. What was he? He's getting something for his wife. I forget.
He was building a new fusion reactor or something. Yeah, and
so they're never necessarily given a lot of backstory. And even Harry's motivation in this one with his blood felt rushed. I agree that felt rushed, but I think by including Electro, what they're giving themselves the opportunity to do is to create a visually spectacular villain, and take advantage of the technology, because we do have to keep reminding ourselves it's a summer movie, and it's supposed to entertain on a blockbuster level, and people are going to pay extra because they're going to be coming for that opening weekend, and they want to see effects.
But I will say, just kind of, I mean, not to interrupt you, but one thing that it kind of detracts almost from the use of Electro is the fact that he's kind of this teleporting villain. And while there are a lot of good fight sequences in the film, the ones where, especially the final sequence where Spider-Man is battling a fully powered Electro, it doesn't translate very well because everything is all over the place. Everything's moving so fast. You have characters blinking in and out. You kind of just this blue poof versus a red and blue like blur, and it's just it's not necessarily a problem with the way it's directed. It's just kind of it's a problem with that character, I guess I would say. And you mentioned that the Spider-Man villains kind of have a one-dimensionality to them to a certain degree, but I mean, would you argue that they could have chosen any other villain to potentially fill this role?
Well, yeah, I guess in looking back at this one, maybe I'd have been content if they just... And I thought he did a pretty good job, honestly. I thought he did a good job of balancing each. Seeing it the second time, I understood that... I saw the scenes that were included in the film and in the screenplay to give both Harry and Max Dillon reasons to be as angry as they are. I mean, Max, when you meet him from the very beginning, he's this self-absorbed sociopath who is like borderline dangerous if you don't even remember what his name is. You know, he's lying about his birthday and he's having these delusional conversations with Spider-Man. I mean, he's not.
I think both on the cake were a little bit of a overplay, but
maybe
those details.
Maybe that's fine. And you know, so yeah, I think maybe they probably decided. And again, I'm putting myself in the filmmaker's shoes, but they probably went through the litany of villains they hadn't done yet. Mm-hmm. I think if they had gone right from right into Dr. Octopus or a more memorable villain, perhaps they would have taken a bigger beating than they are right now. And maybe they figured they could try Electro and see what he would look like. It's hard to tell when, like, halfway through, if you've committed to this character and you cast it then, and then you start to realize there's not a lot that we have here. And I don't think there is a lot to... If they went with someone like Scorpion or Mysterio, you know...
But part of it is kind of how they described it, which is that they said that Electro was going to be this big role, and he kind of ended up getting minimized. And
yeah.
Now, obviously, I don't want to dive into too much spoilers, but at this point, I do actually want to talk a little bit more about Harry Osborn, and especially Dane DeHaan, who I think is actually another, again, much like Andrew Garfield, another really great casting job. I mean, I thought that he was fantastic in that part.
Well, and I'll tell you what, like, I should be furious that they would try to do Harry as the Goblin instead of bypassing Norman. And Norman is a whole nother topic because and it's one of the things that I still like about this movie and that I like about what Webb is doing. Mm-hmm. I think it's ballsy to roll Norman out, played by someone of Chris Cooper's stature, never credited on screen, and to hint at just enough things going on that Norman's still going to be a big player. But if you had told me, like, 5 or 10 years ago that they would have a Spider-Man movie where the first Goblin is not Norman, but it's Harry, I mean, I'd never believe that I could accept it, but for whatever reason, and maybe it's Dane DeHaan, and maybe just it's the promise of what's to come, I'm totally on board with it. I thought it was a really good choice.
I think that, I mean, I don't want to dive into too many spoilers here, but Dane DeHaan, I think it's okay to say he's going to play an important role in the future of this franchise. I think that's great. I look forward to seeing his contribution. That said, I think there are a number of lessons that need to be learned from this movie, mostly in terms of tone, to a degree in terms of structure, and just in terms of world building. But I will say that this movie did hurt how much I am anticipating the future of the Spider-Man cinematic universe. I think you obviously disagree.
But if you could point to a reason, is it because of Mark Webb, or is it because I mean, you say you like Andrew Garfield as the character, you know he's going to stay.
I think what it is...
What if they got new screenwriters?
I think new screenwriters would probably be a smart decision. I mean, like at least Kurtzman seems to be pretty locked in at this point.
Right.
But I think Amazing Spider-Man 2... This is a movie that I have a problem with the script. I think it has a lot of excellent elements. We haven't actually talked about Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy very much, but I think that that relationship is, again, played really, really well. There are a lot of great functioning things with it, but the problem is that the script is ultimately very, very flawed. Part of that is Sony's rush to get all this stuff done, not only in the sense of building what's to come, but also just taking advantage of the first Amazing Spider-Man coming out recently. They need to have sequels coming out very quickly. Right. This is a solo movie problem that I'm hoping that